and welcome to New Realities. This is a weekly show I call it the UFL Roundtable with two of my good friends who are hot on the topic. That's Nadi Hana and Steve Spear. Those are two interesting names, Nadi Hana and Steve Spear. And before we get into Nadi's work, which is sacred geometry, right, Nadi?
Yeah.
And Steve's work, which is, what were you just saying to us, Steve?
What
Yeah, about terms of experience, the
power.
power.
I'm right now just looking at William Blake's Songs of Innocence and Experience, because I was told that I should look. I asked about experiences because we have so many experiences on this show, and I was told to look into William Blake's Songs of Innocence and Experience, and I might find something there. So I'm doing that as we speak. But yeah.
Okay. Do we want to discuss? We were saying that this. Do you see that report on your screen? See that off the that up or not?
Yeah, it's up there now. Preliminary assessment.
Do you see? Anyone see that?
Yeah.
All right. This is the 9-page. I'm sure there've been many shows on this unclassified document from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. This was the 180-day report that the whole UFO community and a lot of the media was waiting for. Preliminary assessment, which means maybe there'll be another assessment of unidentified aerial phenomena. UAP used to be called unidentified flying object. We could talk about why they went from object to phenomena, because there's a lot more than objects. There's a lot of phenomena that are beyond objects. So this is a report from the committee's NDI. That's the Director of Department of Intelligence Agency, FBI, NOJ. I don't even know what these letter alphabets say. Air Force, Army, Navy, ONI, DARPA, which is major, FAA, NOAA, NGA. I mean, there's about 13 different intelligence agencies, and they come up with 9 pages. I haven't really read this whole thing. But one of the big problems is here, as a result of this Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, TA, concentrated its reviews on reports that occurred only between 2004 and 2021, as if they've erased 60 years or more from 47 on of any UFO UAP activity.
Well, Alan, just think about it that way. They erased the UFO experience and replaced it with the UAP experience. You know what I mean? Yeah. They literally erased the UFO experience. Again, the UAP experience is this nuts and bolts militarized thing with alphabet agencies and incoherent militaries, academic paperwork. And the UFO experience was a visionary, inclusive, far-reaching, visionary phenomena. So,
yeah. What do you make about that, Nadi, about them erasing since Roswell 47 to 65 years of UFO activity?
Yeah, for me, it essentially invalidates the information, right? Like, if you're not going to be inclusive of the whole phenomenon, I mean, I don't want to say, like, what good is it, but it actually could be somewhat damaging and misleading, in that regard of its limited focus. So
I agree. It's totally misleading. I don't know if it's damaging, but it does negate Project Blue Book, all the things that were being investigated before. And but
I would use damaging in a really subtle collective consciousness way, right? Like, you've got this whole build up to this release that's really identified as a very significant reveal. right? And the impact of negating all those years is that it paints a certain picture. And I think that there's a subtle damaging, I would use that word, in the reality of a collective conscious starting to connect with galactic and communities, right? It limits it. That's what Steve was saying. It limits us to the scientific. And this was what a friend of mine, who's a real professional, a real expert in ufology. His name is Sean Esbjorn Hargens. He talked about the fact that like it actually is damaging, because if you start to label this as not only little green men or the Greys or a threat, the picture totally moves away from the consciousness expansion, the relationship to our galactic community. Like, I would use the word damaging on a large scale level.
Well, maybe you're right. I think it's baby steps to introduce a public. Let's not, if they said UFO, everyone would say, oh, I know what that is, even though they have no idea what that is. So the new term puts them on new footing, which sort of takes us back to like the beginning of the phenomena, which was 1947. So we're like regressed as far as the public consciousness back to the beginning of the phenomena. So, what were we going to say, Nadi?
Yeah, that is a great point, because I think that is actually one of the strange positives, because relanguaging our approach to things, that can be really important in terms of ditching all negative stereotypes and associations. So that's a great point.
But I also think you're also right in the fact that they have negated a history. It's a history. I wouldn't say a tradition. It's an accumulation of knowledge that's just been like wiped off the table. It's just like, let's just throw it under the table and forget it ever happened.
Right. Like that's what I'm saying, like perfectly articulate. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's both. It's a beginning of something new, and it's also a negating of what was. So anyway, I just go on.
Well, Alan, no,
what?
Alan, you're an optimist. You're very much an optimist.
I am an optimist. Thank you.
Right. You're seeing this as a new beginning. I don't see it as that. I see it as a psyop, in a way, to use a term that floats around these days, where they're pulling us away from the true phenomena, and the people who are not so engaged get drawn down into this kind of militaristic paradigm, where they're not going to look outside again. They're going to look back in to the nuts and bolts stuff. And we need people to look out or look within to a greater awareness of what's going on. This really funnels and narrows down the argument, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, it does in a way, but I just want to read some of what is coming on the chat, which, do you see the chat there, Nadi?
No, I can't see the chat.
The chat says more and more people are experiencing the phenomena. We don't need government anymore. And someone else says, we don't need government for confirmation. Their document is a joke.
Exactly.
I don't think we need government, but a government, unfortunately, as we've seen the last 2 years, is what a lot of people listen to for their official narrative, right?
And that's wrong, Alan. That's what's going on right now in the culture, is that too many people have given authority to perhaps people who don't deserve it.
I agree. That's the culture.
It's a power grab and a narrative grab. And people need to make their own narratives. And like we've talked about this before, how people's visionary experiences are being pushed back into, the standard narrative, which to me is even pretty standard. Grays and the White Room and, silver ships. I think that the narrative is much more expansive and should be much more expansive. And people's narratives are being shunned because they're not speaking the vernacular that the government report wants you to speak.
I agree. That's what Timothy Leary used to say about LSD. You can't think differently. But so we're having a a kind of clash of narratives right here. There's the people who are experiencing it, and then there's the government saying, no, 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 it's this. That's a clash. And most people, unfortunately, are so brainwashed and programmed to listen to the official narrative. But maybe that's changing.
Right.
I mean,
Alan, one of the things I was thinking about was involution and evolution.
Yeah.
And the fact that things don't go in one direction. We like to think they go in one direction, where the narrative is going in one direction, which is maybe what the government likes us to think, because it's a controllable. If they can control one narrative, it's hard to control a million narratives. So the involution is sort of dragging us back to the gutter, while the evolution is maybe what Nadi would say is we're moving on to the Galactic Federation, as she would describe.
So the involution is the official government saying, listen, folks, this is what we're telling you. This is what it is. And the evolution is what Nadi, what is saying about the consciousness evolution, right? Would you say that?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm partnering up with Steve, and I'm also, I mean, you too, Alan, but Steve's so articulate ways. And then everybody on the chat, right? Like, there's not, Steve, we use the word nothingburger, right? It's like disclosure, non-disclosure. And so I think from those of us who've been working in this field for a while, it's disappointing. And, someone had mentioned, I don't know, I'm going to paraphrase, but like contact isn't going to come this way. It's going to come from one-on-one telepathy, channeling, groups, this dialogue. But then that's the evolution. I'm coming. That's the evolution where we are expanding our consciousness to understand how much more there is. Right. I get bored with UFOs, honestly.
But listen to the language. The language of this document gives some really subtle indications here in this. I highlight most of the UAPs, I would say, reported probably do well, that's a very strange language. Would you say that probably do represent physical objects? I mean,
it's just annoying. It's just annoying. It's like,
what does that even mean? Probably do represent what could? It's like, is that rocket ship or probably do exist? I mean,
yeah, but Alan,
odd.
Why are you allowing them to drag you into the word?
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to look for clues in their languaging to see their contradictions.
And on my phone, I've been holding this quote here, which I love. I'm going to say it. It's Flaubert, Gustave Flaubert. Language is a cracked kettle on which we beat out tunes for bears to dance to, while all the time we long to move the stars to pity. So
I've heard that. I like that. That is a great line.
But, so they're moving to he's talking about the stars and the cracked kettle. Which do you prefer? This language is the cracked kettle that we beat out tunes for bears to dance to. I mean, it's a circus act. There's nothing behind there. There's nothing behind this curtain of text. But there's nothing behind this curtain.
I think there is something behind it, but very, very sparse. You said a nothing burger, very sparse nutrition, because let's just look at these two lines. Most of the UAP reported probably do represent physical objects, and they were seen by visible observation. So there's such a strange contradiction there. It is frustrating, Nadi. It's like, why don't they just, right? Can't they just come out and say something?
Yeah. Can I go really extreme in my perspective?
Yes,
right?
please. Yes.
I have a friend who used to use this term in psychiatry, right? Oh, this is rough. So to me, this document is masturbatory.
It's not rough enough for Steve. No.
It's just, I mean, like for me on an ET Roundtable, the best thing we could do is say absolute nothing burger and then move on to the higher levels of what we know contact and disclosure really is.
I agree, but I like to extract the nothing burger and just see what little piece.
Okay, I'll take it.
No, it's a big event, Alan, in the media. You know, I mean, it is a big event, and you know, and as somebody like you or me or not, you know, we've been researching this stuff for a long time. So to come around and like dismiss it out of hand is probably not giving it the due.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
You know, I agree with Nadi that it really deserves no due. You know,
I think, but you're right. The media is having a little feeding frenzy on the nothing burger, which is, you know, but because it's not completely nothing, it's just almost nothing.
But is it productive, Alan? Is it forward thinking? Is it, you know, moving in a direction of consciousness? Is it, to use a term, psychedelic? And, you know, I mentioned to you the other day, you know, the psychedelic experience is not about drugs. I don't do drugs. I've hung around with a lot of people who do drugs, but I don't find drugs to be a productive means of contact. And psychedelic is mind expanding. So I like to think of it, the psychedelic experience, as standing outside of any drug experience for the most part. So is this report psychedelic? Is it mind expanding?
No, it's not. Well, for maybe if you are the guy on the street, never ever thought about UFOs, ETs, and suddenly the newspapers were reporting that someone in the Senate, probably people in the Senate never thought about this. And suddenly there's a report that says, what? This is not a science fiction movie? You mean there really could be something out there? I think that's psychedelic for that guy or woman or whoever's looking.
But didn't Project Blue Book sort of acknowledge it in the same way 50 years ago or 40
Yeah,
years
and
ago?
that was 50. I mean, media, news, they forget what happened yesterday, you know?
So Project Blue Book acknowledged that there's some sort of phenomena that's ununderstandable by modern day physics, if you want to.
Yeah, and then they dropped it, and that was 1969. Interesting, it was December 16th, 1969, the same date, December 16th, 2017, that the headline in the New York Times came out. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting, Alan. That right.
I think they planned that. I think there is a planning.
That's a possible clue. You know,
yeah.
I mean, like, when we're looking at this stuff, you know, surface maybe isn't the place to look at it. Like I say, it's a veil of text.
That's what I'm saying here. Let's look at the clues here. Let's look at the clues. There's another clue right here. In a limited number of incidents, UAP reportedly, why do they say UAP? It's so frustrating. Why don't they put a plural on it? Reported apparently to exhibit unusual flight characters. Let me go right here. Here. Second paragraph. There are probably, why do they use that word probably? Why can't they commit? It's like probably multiple types requiring different explanations. It's so frustrating that they would even use language like that. Yeah. Why can't they just come? Why do you think they do that, Nadi?
Well, okay. So I haven't looked at this thing, and this is the reason why I'm getting pissed off.
All right.
This is so irritating. I totally agree with you. It's like these dangling little bits, and I would go back to the word damaging, because I think in an overall thing, in an overall I don't have a word, in the overall picture, right, the maybe most mainstream people would not recognize that couched language. They would think that the government is doing something here. And I think the damaging part is that you have such little faith in the government right now. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I think there is. And so this kind of suggests that the government is looking out for us and is really open to maybe new information. And that is, totally misleading. And so it's yet another, I think you could totally go PSYOP. It's all orchestrated, and it's all just like, I haven't looked at it because I'm just like irritated by it.
So you would sum up this report as damaging and masturbatory. That's your critique of it.
I think I didn't realize how strongly I feel about it. And as we're like trying to nail them down on a language, it reinforces that that's how I believe
Well,
it.
I'm going to go to the next paragraph, and this might upset you even more. UAPs clearly, now they're much more definitive here. Notice that word clearly pose a safety of flight issue. Now, I would use the word probably, or not even probably. I would say there's no evidence that UAPs pose a safety of flight issue. There's absolutely no evidence.
Well, Alan, exactly. Yeah. That's so. What UFO has ever caused a plane crash that
None.
we know of?
None.
Exactly. So why would they even say that?
They say that to scare people, put them in place, and say, "Uh-oh, really? It may pose a." That gets people riled up. That's the stirring of the pot there.
But it's really evident that there has never been a UFO related plane crash, you know?
Or even, well, there's been incidences, but none of it has interfered with a flight issue. That's been reported from in the last 75 years. So it's interesting. Anyway, what else upsets you about this, Nadi? You can talk about, you can express your upsetness.
No, I think I have, but the more we go into it, the more it supports my position that it's damaging.
All right. Let me just see if there's any. Oh, there is one thing that really stands out here for me when I looked at it briefly before. I haven't really. Yeah, it's too frustrating to read the whole thing. But look at this. Look at this part I highlight here. UAP collection challenges, socio-cultural stigmas. Now, if that's not a clue, Steve, what is? Socio-cultural stigmas to collecting UAP reports. Now, what are they talking about? Socio-cultural.
Well, down there it says also the effect of these stigmas has lessened as senior members of the scientific, policy, military intelligence engage on the topic seriously in public. Reputational risk may keep many observers silent, complicating scientific pursuit of the topic. So that's saying that
where are you seeing that? Where are you seeing that?
The first bullet point dot.
Oh, narratives from aviators.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So they're saying that you know, that UFO is kook, and people, scientists, hard science doesn't want to report on it, and there's a socio-cultural stigma there. Even though, Alan, I agree with you, the word itself is more interesting when what they're telling us it means.
And you know, the contradiction, and again, the frustrating part is the government has created the social stigmas, and now they're complaining that they exist. Now, if that's not an out and out masturbatory contradiction, Nadi, I don't know.
But that's what the government, that's what they do. It's to confuse. I mean, if anybody hasn't noticed, we're in one of the most confusing periods in history where the media, the government, and everybody is talking at each other with no real meaning behind anything, because, as I've said before, it's lies all the way down.
Yeah, no, but this is another key, I think, that sentence you just read, as I look at it more. Although the effects of these stigmas have lessened as senior members of the scientific, policy, military, and intelligence communities engage on the topic seriously in public. Now, who is actually doing that from the scientific, policy, military, and intelligence?
Yeah, I have a good example on that one. Yeah.
Well, what's that, Nadi?
I mean, it's probably not like insider. It's definitely not insider. But just to branch off a little bit, you know, this past weekend was Contact in the Desert, right? And so you had all these amazing people who have been in the business for, well, in the whatever you call it, for decades, right? And so here we're talking about, you know, senior members of scientific policy. What I would say, I would shift it a little bit to senior members who have been the public face for, you know, the HR for.
There aren't even any senior members in the scientific community have come out about that. I've read, and I've been looking at everything.
Well,
who are those scientific?
The question is, who defines scientific? You know, who's defined? So for the last year and a half, we've listened to Fauci. You know, and now we know that Fauci. So scientism, the idea of scientism, is an issue. We have to discuss who are these scientists. as far as I'm concerned, Nadi's probably a better scientist than them. They are.
Well,
And
I want to talk to Nadi then. Yes.
I'd like to hear about her sacred geometry. You know, go ahead.
I was going somewhere with that, with the contact in the desert piece, right?
Yeah.
So you're not going to see the scientists, any kind of, reported officials, although I don't agree with the fact that they are, or the thought that they are. What you have are people like Paul Hynek, right, who's been in the industry for so long and promotes the idea that you're crazy if you believe in UFOs. He's just completely.
Wait, Paul Hynek? Paul, the son of J. Allen Hynek?
Yeah, am I getting, there's one person, I thought it was Hynek, who has, no? There's one person.
I don't know, maybe, I've never heard him say that.
I don't know that name.
And there's one guy, there's one guy who has been responsible for the disinformation campaign. I'm getting the name wrong, but he's basically.
Well, there's lots of people like Neil deGrasse Tyson says. Right. Neil deGrasse, if you want to pick on someone, pick on that guy who says, "Oh, those are just artifacts of radar; they're not real." What about the pilots who've seen these things? So.
Yeah. Well, we could talk about. I know there's so many in the disinformation campaign, but there's one guy who's been the main proponent and he's represented the government perspective, quote unquote. And
Elizondo?
What?
No, not Elizondo. I don't.
Elizondo. I just would like to talk about him for a bit because I find.
Yeah, talk about him because I like him, Steve. I like Elizondo.
Do you? Why?
He is the only one who left the government. Maybe he's a secret agent still, but he says, we got to get this story out there. So no one else from the Pentagon. What do you think, Nadi?
Yeah. I think that's who the name I got wrong. But yeah, and he's starting to say this is going to be pretty embarrassing for those of us who have been promoting that it's not true. It's somewhere in that, isn't he?
Steve has another opinion of Elizondo, I'm sure. What is that, Steve?
Well, I mean, I like we've discussed, I have no real interest in wasting my energy down that rabbit hole that they promote because I find that reality tunnel to be fruitless. You know what I mean? So he gets a lot of media. For some reason, he's getting a lot of media. Maybe he's a good self-promoter. Maybe
he's getting media because he's the go-to guy within the disclosure movement who's on the edge. What's that, Nadi?
Yeah, I'm thumbs up.
Well, what has he brought to the table?
Well, he's brought to the table at least an hypothesis that there might be quantum fields affecting some of these UFOs.
And a lot of other people have been saying that for decades. So we can't give him that credit. You
don't like him, you're saying?
No, I find it to be a narrative grab. He's sucking up the oxygen in the room. You know what I mean? And that's never good.
What do you think, Nadi? What is this clash of narratives then that we are in, right? I mean, I think there is some good that Elizondo's doing in coming forth.
Well, I think so Contact in the Desert, I mean, I thought it was great, even though it was virtual. There was so much good cutting edge information about this subject.
Were you able to get in? A lot of people had a hard time getting into the
platform was a little gnarly, and I don't honestly focus on this aspect because I'm kind of with Steve, and I'm so done with UFOs. Are they real? Are they not? Because we got to get to the ascension. We got to get to the consciousness aspect of contact and the significance of our expansion collectively. My God, it's a do or literally die at this point. We've got to up level. So I don't spend too much time on this, which is why I can't get names right. But I think that the disinformation and the information narrative is just designed to keep us completely focused and distracted.
It's been said that the word of sin is restriction. And this is a very restrictive report. You know what I mean? It doesn't open things up. It restricts. And, and we're allowing ourselves to be, I'll go back to Blake, mind-forged manacles. You know what I mean? We're allowing them to put mind-forged manacles on us. And we should be free. That. We should be free to explore our own cosmologies, try to weave our own cosmologies into the greater fabric of the overarching cosmology of the moment, the zeitgeist, the spirit of the age, and figure out what's going on for ourselves rather than getting a 6-page report that they baited us with for months,
right?
years, and we get garbage. You know what I mean? So I have nothing good to say about Elizondo. He was promoting this, and he's still making hay with it.
I think for beginners, I know it's frustrating if you've looked at any of this stuff for like 2 seconds. It's like, oh my God, this is old. But for some, I still go back to that guy or the woman who knows nothing. It's like, oh my God, the government's talking about this.
Well, what are people saying in the chat? Like, are they people who are big?
These are people who probably know a little more than the average person. They say,
right, and I would say, Alan, but that's it. We should, point these people to Jacques Vallée, point them to Carl Jung,
yeah. Diego says it's not mind expanding for you, but for many other people, it is mind blowing.
Okay,
that's a good comment.
And I have to respect that.
Yeah.
I'll just
let's talk about. What were you saying, Steve? Sorry. What?
I have to say though, also that for people like you, me, Nadi, perhaps, and a lot of people, this is kindergarten stuff. You know what I mean? And we need to, graduate. Going back to a psychedelic term, we need to graduate and initiate into further levels of awareness and consciousness.
What's that?
That's okay. That's exactly what the ETs say about us.
Really?
Right? Like, dude, they are advanced. We are primitive. They've got to step it down. So we've got to honor every single phase. Like, if we want to evolve, we got to use this, humble opinion, right? We got to use this as an opportunity for the dialogue. You have this lovely human on the chat who's, putting themselves out there. Like, wait a minute, this is a big deal. Well, that is the only place that I credit this report, is it opens up a dialogue where we can say, well, what is it that you feel about that? Like, here's why we feel this way. Nobody's right, although we pretty much think we are.
No, I don't think it's about being right. It's like school, there's people in kindergarten, they're not even learning to read. And then there's people who are in the high school level. They've read it all. They've done the math. They've done the homework. They've done it all. So we've been studying the phenomena. You've taken an intensive course. There's other people just in first grade. They're just learning the ropes. So there's different narratives on different levels depending on how educated.
Right. That's exactly what the Arcturians say about us. Right. They're so loving. And we're in kindergarten. Some of us have studied. Some of us know the channels. Some of us know telepathy. But that's what they say about us, right? We got to go into compassion, right?
Okay, and this is why my guide asked me to look up innocence and experience.
Nice.
Why? Talk about it.
Does innocence have more value? Does experience have more value than innocence? We are possibly...
Or does innocence have more value? So we're the people just learning about this are the innocent, and the experience are the people who've been around it for years.
Right. So maybe, so I'll just say, because I'm against the report, that it is kind of corrupting the innocence that can evolve.
That's a good point, Steve.
Because we're planting a seed in possibly bad ground.
That's the best thing you said all night. Yes.
That's damaging. That's the damaging. Yeah.
I think on that terms, it's like when you learn, I just remember, if we talk about the high school analogy or the school analogy, when you're learning reading in elementary school and you're reading meaningless words like see Dick run, seeing there, it dumbs you down from the beginning.
Restrictive.
It dumbs the intellect of this adventurous mind with substanceless material. So it's like you think reading just is like that.
Entrainment. You know what I mean? It's neuro-linguistic entrainment, which brings us to the light language kind of idea. What is the value of a light language? Does it have value? Does it carry more information or less information?
Well, someone was saying because you don't understand the meaning of word, it actually carries more, because the restriction is the constriction of comprehension.
Right. but in a sort of information theory sort of way, which I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know information theory. There's the signal and the noise.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what does, we're talking about language again, and
it comes down to language. Yes.
Learning the reality tunnel is formed of words. Like I say, it's a veil of text. That report is a veil of text. Do you see through the veil?
Well, I understand the point you're making now, because it's damaging, because they're starting off the innocence with corruption already. Is that sort of, so do you want to read a little bit about innocence and experience from Blake, Steve? Because I think you tuned into that in the beginning. And I hope you have some clothes on besides your glasses.
It's hot here, Alan.
Whatever. It's okay.
Okay, so I'll just read, I was looking through, I'll just really quick, we'll read Blake. I think this is Innocence. Earth raised...
Take your time. Take your time.
No, I'm just going to go. I don't. Earth raised up her head from the darkness, dread and drear. Her light fled, stony, dread, and her locks covered with gray despair. Prisoned on watery shore, starry jealousy does keep my den cold and hoar. Weeping over, I heard the father of the ancient men, selfish father of men, cruel, jealous, selfish fear, can delight, chained in night, the virgins of youth and morning bear. Does spring hide its joy when buds and blossoms grow? Does the sower sow by night, or the plowman in the darkness plow? Break this heavy chain that does freeze my bones around. Selfish, vain, eternal bane, that free love with bondage bound. And, it's nice to put things out there like that just as language.
Well, what does it mean? What is that? How do you interpret that? What is the meaning of that?
Well, because I just read it kind of offhand.
Well, let's break it down.
Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't need to mean anything. It's just, what's the ipsit loquor? The thing is itself. You know what I mean? There is no thing beyond the thing itself. And that's a way to view things that somehow has, I think, on occasion, greater value. It is the thing itself. Text can be just an object to be viewed, not to be understood. Media is sometimes just an object to be observed, not to be.
Yeah. No, but I get it.
Not to be taken as truth.
That leads us right to Nadi's work with crop circles, because when you see these formations, there is no language, but it kind of connects right to the right brain, which sees patterns, not the left brain, which is language modeled. So let's talk about that, as these formations are giving information.
Right.
So tell us what they mean, because I actually might go to England next year. What's that, Steve? What's that, Steve? You froze on us. That's a good image. Okay, go ahead, Nadi.
Okay. Right. So what I'm hearing here is the, right brain, left brain, the difference between linear communication and intuitive, energetic, right? And you could look at Blake, you could look at Shakespeare, you could look at, so many of our, famous poets, even mathematicians, right? And you could consider that those intelligences channeled information, right? And so I think what Steve is saying, like, you don't necessarily have to have this linear breakdown of Blake's words, but there's an energetic transmission, right? And so I think we're being invited, with the crop circles, with the UFO phenomenon, with the UAP, right? We're the highest activation that we could hope for is an understanding of our subtle realms, our psychic capacities that then expand us into our multidimensionality. And when you do that, when you're connecting on that intuitive level, you're inevitably going to get to an understanding of the interconnectedness and unity consciousness, right? And that's where our galactic community want us to go. We need to up level. And the technology in the crop circles is working in such sophisticated ways on our subtle energy systems that, the best we can do is to learn and tune in. And yeah, we are those innocents, those neophytes in terms of understanding advanced technologies. But the best we can do is understand that there is so much more. There is this energetic interpretation. There is so much technology that could help us evolve. So when we start to, interpret channels or, poets or all of the greats, when we start to extrapolate the higher, right? That's where I want to go. That's where we want to go collectively, right? So the crop circles, I could go on for years in terms of the technology in there.
Yeah, but why don't you show us some crop circles so we can actually get that visual mental communication? Because yes, the left brain is linear and the right brain sees patterns. So these formations are talking directly to this intuitive part of our consciousness.
What does the gut brain? What does the gut brain feel or see? What does the pineal brain see? What does the extended nervous system feel and think? I'll just say one thing. I was talking to Jean Fox, and she's reading your book, Alan. She says, "Oh my God, I love this book." She really did. She bought it at your.
I know she bought 2 copies, I think.
Yeah, and she was like, "Oh my God, I love this book." And then she was saying, "Well, what do I read next?" And I said, and we were talking about language as a big thing, which I think is really important. I'm going to come back to the crop circles and language in a second.
Yeah.
But I said to Jean, Jean, thinking for a minute, I said, "Jean, have you read Finnegan's Wake?"
Yes. Oh my God.
Have you read Finnegan? And she says, "Well, I'm not really familiar with it." And I'm like, "Jean, so Finnegan's Wake is translingual in a way."
It is.
And I'm wondering if I can be so bold, are the crop circles translingual?
Yes, they are. You can be bold. But what does that mean, translingual? Because I don't think they're lingual at all. What's that?
It's like light language. It gets rid of the limitations and the restrictions of our linear mind, and it goes right in, And Alan, if you want to make me a co-host, I can open up.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, I'll make you a co-host so you can.
And again, we go back to, I go back to William Burroughs, who was like, rub out the word. Language is a virus. They just found the oldest ant that was infected with the parasitic fungus, and it's like 500 million years old or something. They found it embedded in amber, and the fungus was exploding out. So these mind parasites of fungus that control like toxic toxoplasma with the cats influencing human behavior. So is language along those same lines as being a hidden influencer? And again, the subtext, the subcarrier frequency, as opposed to what I say, is there a subcarrier going on? And yes, there is.
Oh, nice. Good. Okay.
I was listening to an Alan Moore lecture on YouTube, and I don't know if everybody's familiar with Alan Moore.
I'm not. Who is he?
Alan Moore wrote, he was a comic guy, but he's also a mystic and occultist. And, because he's with these graphic novels as a combination of both text and image, he sees that as sort of a doorway as an art form that can be more psychedelic and opening more doors. Where are the images? We know that the images in this UAP report, we've talked about this, the imagery was so dumbed down. It was gray triangles floating.
Yeah, no, I agree. Even Elizondo, you have to give him some credit for saying, we have a lot better images than what has been released. Now, Jean-Baptiste says the crop circles are code verifications for just a few. I don't think they're for just a few. I think they're for whatever level of consciousness you are at. If you're a real adept, they can open up doors to multiple levels of consciousness.
Which is why we could go back to Finnegan's Wake as a code. How do you break the code of Finnegan's Wake? It is so multi-level, and again, recursive and rhizomic. And
I agree. Finnegan's Wake is probably the most amazing book ever written.
Right. And we've talked about, I've brought up the Lamont Young Dream House as this web of frequencies. It's the same with Finnegan's Wake. It's a woven tapestry that wherever you stand, it has a I'm not going to sit here and expound on Finnegan's Wake in the time we have.
I will go ahead, expand a little bit, and then we'll get. No, I just wanted to tell you my favorite line from Finnegan's Wake, and then we'll go to the crop circles. Joyce, of course, if people don't know who wrote Finnegan's Wake, it was his last book. It begins in the middle of a sentence that begins on the last page. It starts in the middle of a sentence. And my favorite line is, "We shall come and go from atoms and ifs, but we are surely destined to be at odds without ends."
Great. Through circuitous routes, right? I mean,
yes,
we go through these routes.
Atoms, ATOMS, and ifs, IFS, surely destined, surely.
And Finnegan's Wake is light language, right? I mean, we have to give it that.
Well, it's more sophisticated than light language because the words can be kind of taken.
Now, Alan, that's a point. I'm just going to go for a second. Yeah. That's a point about experience and innocence.
Yeah.
Right? Joyce finally worked that book, worked it and worked it and worked it. Light language sometimes is innocent. It's very much what comes out of the mouth. It's not. That brings us to the mythos and the logos. And
it also brings me to the point what Truman Capote said about Jack Kerouac.
Right.
He said, "That's not writing, that's typing."
Right, right.
Anyway, okay, Nadi, you're up. Let's talk about the circles.
Oh, I just love hearing you guys, though. It's so great. You know, I think the way I hear, the conversation is the encoding, right? Messages, right? Poetry, the greats, they're encoded with activations and access points. That's the difference with the innocence and the experience, right? Is you're able to receive and assimilate the codes, and you've practiced, right? We've practiced, and so to me, like, there's a lot of people, especially next generations, who are never even going to experience Blake, right? Just never even going to grab it. And so, and there's a ton of coded information in religions and cultures, but they're incredibly laden with dogma, and they're very inaccessible for that reason. And that's why I love sacred geometry and crop circles, because they're clean and they're accessible to everybody. And like you were saying, they really do reflect your level of consciousness because they're so neutral. So you can look at them. I'm going to put them up while we're talking. You can look at them and you can say, "Oh, those are man-made. There's nothing in there." Or you can look at them. No, I'm just saying that reflects consciousness, right?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Some of them, there are some of them for the disinformation campaign. And so, but the genuine ones have such incredible technology, and you can find that if you want to. If I'm going to go all the way out there, I'll tell you, this is the sigil to my ship. This is the sigil of my star.
This is what I use for my logo on New Reality. Go back to that other one, could you, for a second?
We'll pause.
Because this is what they call, back a little bit, this is what they call those impossible. I mean, it's still sort of my logo, but and the other thing that's transmissible, I would say, is the fact that when you're inside of that, there is a vibration. There is. Have you been into them? Have you been to England, Nadi?
I haven't been, but the thing is, and I'm excited. The thing is the crop circles transmit beyond time and space, so you can sit and work with them, right? And
I might go next year. We'll be in touch about that, but I have an offer to lead a tour there next year.
Oh, fabulous. And just to build on that, and I'm going to show a bunch of my favorites, right? Just to build on that, when you're in the crop circle, you are experiencing perhaps sonic frequencies, invisible sonic frequencies that are secondary to the technology, that are aligning the hemispheres of your brain and creating an altered state of consciousness that then makes you more receptive to spontaneous healing.
This one I love, the 6-pointed star in the middle of those cubes, Steve.
Yeah, it's going really fast. I know, I don't mean to.
Why are you going so fast? Can't you stop the power? Well, take it off power. Just show us in the slide view.
I'll just go
end
slow.
the PowerPoint show and just show us like manually.
Oh, okay.
So we can look at it like just as you see it, like.
Okay. You know, that's how I usually do things. So that's funny because that's how my train of thought goes.
Oh, that's good. No, go back then to that other one with the star. Go up a little bit. Could you go? Yeah, like that one.
I'm curious about this one, Alan. Hold on a second.
Okay, that one. Yeah.
So I was talking to my friend Masahiro Kahata, who's been in 23 crop circles, and Masahiro said to me, "There's a new crop circle that just popped out a couple weeks ago, and it was a 7-pointed.
Yeah,
this one is 7-pointed." And Masahiro said to me, "Not many crop circles are 7-pointed." Which is interesting. So this one, do we know what year this is from?
I never know the years or the fields because I just go for the symbology.
Okay.
Well, you could find out on Crop Circle Connector. You can go back and trace the years.
Totally.
If people are interested in Crop Circle Connector. If anyone's interested in going on a Crop Circle tour, email me, actually, if you're watching. I'll put my email in the...
So when I see a 7, an asymmetrical 7, which again, Alan, when we talk about the symmetry of the brain, when something asymmetrical comes up, we should take notice of it.
Right.
But is it actually asymmetrical, or is it just the illusion of asymmetry?
Exactly. True, Alan. I get it. Okay, we can move on if you want.
No, but I want to say something about what you said. It has a sonic frequency, because I think these are actually made with sound, and it holds the sonic frequency of how it was made.
Yeah. Well, the technology of how they were made, I mean, there's a lot of different ways. If you look into that, it's a really neat. And you're right, the numerology, and then, so there's the obvious 7, and then, you know, what they do is they go through with dowsing devices and they find the hidden geometry, right? And it's all this encoded information that if we can start to understand how rich they are, it's like the movie Contact, right? It's coded, and it's just for us to step up. I'm going to show you one of my
Wait, I just want to say this is also 7 and 14.
Right, 7 and 14.
And also half of this, so this is also 28 as well. If you see.
But Nadi, can you point out any encoded information in this crop circle?
Not in this one. Nope. No, I just
the encoding is the 7 and the 14. That's an encoding,
right?
I mean that's
Well, the other thing is, you know, the encoding technology, part of the genius and sophistication is that each individual is going to walk in and have their DNA activated in a different way, right? So there's coding that's generalized but unique to every structure, in that, like, that's how advanced it is. So that's kind of where I go with that. Yeah,
but even looking at it, you don't have to walk in there. Just looking at it encodes the mind to a certain frequency.
Right.
All right, you ready for this one?
I need to say that breaking the code is also breaking the spell.
Yes.
The spell is the spiel.
Yes.
You're breaking so we're going back to language again. And I find crop circles, when I look at them, when I think about them, when I experience them, I see them as sound. I don't see them as
they are sound in form. Yes, I think
I see them as sound. No, I do not see them as visual. I see them
really, because you're a visual sort of guy, you know.
Well, I do a lot of sound too, so but whatever.
But you do a lot of painting. So what do you make of this? This is incredibly complex. What is this? Is like a spider web. What is this?
I mean, there's a lot of different ways to describe it. You could go hyperbolic hexagonal, design. But just to name, like Steve, like a lot of people go 2D. Some of the designs you can pop really easily into 3D. But so many people see them multidimensional. These are multidimensional designs, right? And so many people experience them on a sensory level. They see them like up, and you know, the movie Thrive really does a nice job of demonstrating how some of them are really 3D technology.
Yes, and they're not just 3D; they're 4D and 5D as well.
They're beyond D. You know, oh, check this out! I think I've discovered a new term. I was so excited because I'm petitioning to do a TED Talk on multidimensionality and superhumans. Right? I'm going to get the word out. So I think. But I was realizing it's so beyond multi-dimensionality. Ready for this? Infinidimensionality. right?
Infinite
Dimensionality, right? Like, and just infinite. We could tap this geometry for infinite amounts of intelligence. So the coding is inherent. It's going to be different for everybody. There's sonic elements. And then if you go down to some of the other levels, right? Like, these technologies are unique for how they impact the field, right? They change the crystalline structure of the soil. The plants are kept alive through the technology, which is that's not in the man-made ones. That's not true. You know, they're so extraordinary in terms of sometimes the imprint is left in the field for years, right? So this is evidence of what they call biophysical anomalies. So we can sit here and talk about these esoteric aspects of the crop circles, but there's also literal, physical anomalies that really prove.
All right. You're going to have to come to the crop circle tour with us next year.
Okay.
I just want to mention a little bit about geometry.
Yeah.
A lot of where we come from is Cartesian. And that's Descartes. And, I was reading something today where people were like, Descartes is the father of modern rationalism and the ratio and the mind-body. But Descartes was actually informed by his angelic vision on the white mountain.
By an angel. He was informed by an angel.
Right. So, and he has the great line is something like, the angel says to him, "Would you carry this to a friend," or something, which I always am fascinated by.
Oh, really? When the angel said to him, "I think, therefore I am," is that what?
No, the angel didn't. I don't think the angel gave him that. The angel said to him, in a way that like is a trick of language that we haven't figured out yet, a code. "Would you mind carrying this to a friend?" I think. But I just want to jump really quick because we live in this sort of a Cartesian or Euclidean geometry. You know what I mean? But there's also hyperbolic geometry and spherical geometry. And I was thinking about, the one of the great hyperbolic geometrical examples is when Frida Harris did the Thoth deck. She encoded in the Thoth tarot deck, she encoded and used hyperbolic geometry, which was beginning to be discovered or experimented with in the late 1800s. So Lady Frida Harris, who designed the Thoth deck, was doing another sort of geometry encoded in those cards, breaking out of Euclidean geometry into hyperbolic geometry. So just anybody out there who would be
look how three-dimensional this is. This obviously looks like some kind of a molecule. Is that what it's been interpreted with this one, Nadi?
Yeah, good molecular structure. There's some that are designed to suggest the molecular structure of DMT and, or melatonin and how we can access different, consciousness expanding states. So
what is this molecule then? What is this a molecule?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know this one.
Go ahead. Yeah.
But here's one I love. This was in a different PowerPoint that I talk about. This crop circle was a direct response to us sending out a piece of information. The SETI program sent out some information to into space through radio.
This is in response to the Carl Sagan message from the Arecibo telescope, radio telescope, from Puerto Rico, that sent out the message of how many people. And so you have the rest of that. This was the year before. This is the Arecibo telescope, right?
No, here, I have this one. Let me come back.
You have that one.
I do. Yeah. I have the whole
that
story.
Was a big breakthrough, that one, when that came back. And no one believed it was actually,
are you talking about that specific crop circle?
That crop circle leads to the Arecibo message and the response to that message. She'll show you.
Okay. So here, let me find it. So we sent out the symbol, and then in the field, right? We received such clear information, and that one is, I'm going to find it. Oh my God, I have so many I could share with you.
They're great. They're really.
So this is it. So we sent out this. We sent out a code that included, that we were carbon-based humans, that we have this many DNA. It looked like this, right? We sent out this piece of information, and then it
Wait,
came.
we're not seeing it yet. You put your screen up.
Okay, hang on, I'll find it. So
I know this is a great one.
Yeah, I got a screen share. So
people refuse to believe this actually was not a fake, but this is what came back, right?
So this is what we right. This is what we sent out. We sent out something like this. That here's our DNA chain. On this side,
it's upside down though. Actually, a little bit.
Is it okay? Well, this is yeah, you're right. Sometimes it's tricky to get them
because this shape here is the there it is.
Right.
There's the telescope. There's the radio telescope, like the one in Puerto Rico that sent out the Arecibo message. And this formation appeared in front of another telescope in Chilbolton.
Right. So here's the response. Here's here's maybe the sender, but then what they put in a nearby field, what came was this image to suggest that they send technology through satellites, not through radio like we were doing. So just so much fascinating information. And
why satellites, Nadi? Can you explain why that represents not radio waves but satellites? Can you?
Well, I don't even know if it's satellite, but a form of technology, right, Nadi?
Right, a form of technology beyond radio. I mean, that's my. It's basic understanding, right? It's just this information that's next to the satellite, and it's telling us that they're communicating in a different way. And
I have the slide that puts this crop circle with the dots next to the message that was sent out. Do you have that one where you compare the two side by side?
I don't have that one. No.
Oh, I'll give you that one. That is a great one because you can see the message we sent, how many humans on Earth, third planet from the sun, and they send us another back about how many beings on their planet. Yeah.
Right. Well, this is the satellite up here. Right. Here's the same. So they're telling us how they're communicating. And I don't know, somewhere down here it says radio, right? That we're using different technology. That's my understanding. It might be off. I won't.
Down here, this first row shows how many planets from the sun they are.
Right.
This is the DNA, and there's a little alien type being down there as compared to the human being.
Exactly.
I'll have to put that in your slideshow because it's a clear demonstration of what we sent out and what came back.
Yeah. Is it this? Oh, here you go. I do have it. There you go.
Oh, good. Oh, there it is.
Right
These
there.
are the two. The one on the left is the thing we sent out in 1974. The one on the right here is what came back in 2001.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And of course, I just want to show the thing at the very bottom is the telescope that sent it out, and the telescope and their instrument that sent this out.
Right, which is then, as we saw, it's this technology, right? And it showed up in a field right next to that radio, the dish.
Radio telescope, yes.
Right. So, there's all of these different examples, and I don't know how far you want me to go, Alan, because I could just go
far. Because people say, oh, it's a hoax, but when you're on the ground, and I've been in those crop circles, you can't see what you're doing if you're going to do these little dots and dashes on the ground.
Right.
Now it might be easier with drones, but in 2001 they didn't have drones. But still, I don't think it's being done on the ground. At least most of them are not.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else you got? Show us.
Well, I gotta say there are some sophisticated crop circles out there. You can't deny it, and it is all part of a disinformation campaign in order to suppress the intelligence that's in here, because we could really. Let me see. I wanted to find this one. We could really use. What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we could really use.
We could really use the information for technology, but
So like free technology, it really is like contact. The coordinates for structures are in these crop circles. So this one is an example. It's a really great example of how crop circles interface with our consciousness. Right. So this was an example of this. I believe he was some kind of scientist. I don't know. I can't remember what kind of scientist, but he came to England and he wanted to see an example of magnetic propulsion. He wanted a crop circle that would demonstrate that. And here, you couldn't see this more clearly, right? This is a demonstration of technology. And so this is just an example how the information in here is so intelligent. And if we could just learn to harness the technology,
I don't know, it looks like a UFO in the center there, right?
Right. And so
ship.
It's
but
so
you know what also convinced me that there's such an intelligence with I was there on August 8, 2008, 888. And the night before, we're all waiting for the crop circle to show up. Me and some friends slept in a field above some of the fields that are usually where they show up. And we didn't sleep in front of the right field, but next to the field we were looking at, there was a crop circle that formed in what's called Milk Hill. And it was an 8, but not just a regular 8, number 8. It was a toroidal 8 that went in and out. Do you know that crop circle, the 8 crop circle?
I do. I don't think I have that one in here.
Oh, that's when I stood in that and I felt the activation of Kundalini energy. So
yeah,
it's so really good.
Yeah. So potent. I mean, there's people there's people that go into crop circles and they have spontaneous remission of chronic illnesses, and I used to do crop circle classes in Portland, Oregon, and I had this one woman, I was hosting a call, and really it's diabolical because all you have to do is have this, running slideshow of the crop circles, and they're doing their work with our consciousness, and we don't even know. It's so sneaky.
Yeah.
The woman came up, she had 2 canes.
No, I think it's intentional. It's not sneaky. It's what it was made for. It's why they're there in the field, and people are taking pictures of them so we can have this transmission.
Well, Nadi, I would like to hear where you think they come from.
Well,
I want to also hear, Nadi, what you were going to say before we cut you off. Sorry.
Yeah. One of the so this woman, and what I say sneaky because we don't register their sophistication. We think we're looking at cool 2D images, and they're just working behind the scenes. That's what I mean. So this woman came up.
You're right.
Yeah, absolutely handicapped. She could barely get up the steps. She had 2 walkers. She was just like crippled. Coming to just my little program, just like an hour of seeing a slideshow like this of crop circles, she left without her canes, walked down the stairs, no problem. It's remarkable because they transcend our limited concept of time and space. Right? God, it's just great. So I want to show you. Okay, so Steve, really quick, I've got that. But when people start to doubt the genuine, right? Like what's happened over years is that whenever we get to disinformation and matching the potential, they up level, right? And so one of the things they've made the lay of the crop incredibly sophisticated.
Now, this is in the center of the crop, these weavings. I saw that, and it's like, who would have time in the middle of the night to weave all this crop together just on the fact that someone might see that? So it's so odd. It's so odd. And you see this one that's August 3rd, 2009. You see with that weaving is there.
Right.
That's not the center of the circle, but it's the center where all the plants were laid down from. That's what's so odd.
Right. That's one of the hallmark keys. Yeah.
And the center of the circle is not in the exact center. Right.
And then the other thing is that, man-made versus, sophisticated technology is these things manifest within minutes.
But what do you think the weaving? Because no one can figure out the significance of this weaving. But maybe it's what you said, upgrade. What do you think?
They're up-leveling. They're trying to tell us, like, look, these really aren't man-made. These are lays that cross over 3 ways. Here's a really cool one. This is a bird's nest right in the middle of a crop circle.
Oh, I've never seen that one before.
Yeah, like that is remarkable, right?
All right.
That kind of
Save your money. We're going to England next summer, okay?
Okay.
I want to go out.
So you come with us, Steve. Yes.
Yeah. So Steve, to answer the question really quickly, and then also my favorite encoded quote unquote crop circle is that I've heard that the Arcturians, an advanced civilization from the star system Arcturus, that they actually have all of the blueprints for the crop circles on the mothership. What is that? What's happening with that? Oh my gosh.
What is that, Steve?
Yeah.
Well, so I got the inkling that I should pull this book off my bookshelf.
Yeah.
And I opened it, and that's the image that was on the page that I opened to.
What is that? That looks like a crop circle.
Now listen to this. It says the devouring whirlpool, regarded as the Hag.
There you go.
This book has a bit of corn dollies, and this is an amazing book. It's called Mythic Island by Michael Doms. I can't recommend it highly enough. I mean, this is a great
book.
And it's not as good as Making Contact, but
it's called Mythic what? Mythic what?
Mythic Ireland.
No, but what's it? Thank you. But what's it called? Mythic
Ireland.
Mythic Ireland. Oh.
By Michael Doms. But it has a lot to do with the cultural use of and prehistoric use of grain and fields and geomancy, ley lines.
Yeah.
But it's a very, very, very good book. I mean, I can't. So I was just called to pull this off my shelf. I opened it up, and that's the image that popped out. I'm just. I interrupted you, Nadi. Sorry. So you think these are messages from the Arcturians, or can you go into that a bit?
For a while, there are similar patterns. There's similar styles, and there's a lot of them that, some of them make cubes and some of them have a certain type of framing. And I started thinking, oh, these are different civilizations. And who really knows, but some channel piece of information came through saying that the Arcturians are the main ones in charge of the crop circles. Oh, here we go. Tom Kenyon also, who channels the Arcturians and the Hathors, goes into the book Arcturian Anthology, and they claim that they are the main ones responsible for the geometry, the crop circles and the geometry, and that basically if you're tuned into one or both of them, you're signaling to the civilizations that you are interested in communication, telepathic communication, and you're basically saying, I'm ready. So when you start to look into these crop circles that, the Arcturians do say that they're in charge of, I mean, the Arcturians are advanced civilizations with technologies. It makes sense. And here we go. This one, right? This is a very significant, type of communication.
Oh, yeah. Talk about language, Steve. That's language.
Right. But this one happened in 3 stages, right? This one happened. The first one was this satellite-looking image. The second one, they added this technology. And then the third one, they added the code, right?
Yes, the light language code. You're right.
Yeah. Right. So here it is. This, they're hard shots, but it's so incredible. And, this was a mind blower as to like, oh my God, these formations have some stuff going on. And this was so powerful for me that I had to draw it. Right, like I want to make sure to mention that if you are called to the crop,
you drew that. What did you get from it when you drew it?
That's the thing, is it's so non-linear. There's this activation that's happening that we're not necessarily connected to. But I was so compelled by the crop circles that I just had to draw them and draw them. I ended up having an art show because I just needed to draw them. I don't know if I have that in here, but it was crop circle after crop circle, and I would draw them and then discover the geometry underneath them, right? This is the blue dots.
Great. Is that yours?
Yeah, right?
Is that your geometry?
Yeah.
Wow, excellent.
So the blue dots are a version of this form. I just did it over and over again. I put it on transparencies, and then I saw the underneath, right? This is a version of it. And then I saw the geometry underneath, right? Which just gets incredible. And then it just spaz out.
Great.
Infinitely, right?
That is really good. Wow, beautiful, Nadi. Really nice.
It was, so my point of sharing all of that is that it's compulsory and you get activated. It's much like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It switches a flip that we long for in terms of an inner knowing and an activation, and like, oh, here's why we came to this planet. We are of service, and it really started helping me understand my higher purpose of coming and communicating the galactic, community that are here to help us. They're invested in us. They really want us to do well. They want us to survive ourselves. And the more we talk about this consciousness expansion, the more likely we are to get there, and the more likely we are to connect with each other around these ideas of consciousness, right? So
wow, nice, Nadi. This is, don't you love that, Steve?
Yeah, Nadi. So I want to ask you, when you're doing this, do you feel that you're entering into a trance state at all? Is this as you're doing the drawings? What's your mode?
right. The thing I would say is that this all started happening before I learned the cognitive aspects. So it was really just, what I've discovered about the geometry is that they are in such perfect alignments. The proportions, the ratios, they tap into fundamental patterns, the phi ratio, the hexagons, right? And we are the geometry. So as I was drawing the geometry, as I was drawing the crop circles without knowing anything about them, I was aligning my system, and then I opened up to higher guidance. I had no idea why I was doing what I was doing. I just needed to do it. And it was really because I was aligning to myself, So
When you go ahead, Alan.
No, this is what they call a fractal. What do they call that? A Julius set fractal, right?
Or a Mandelbrot,
No, but a Julius set one,
Right.
and then you have the 6 levels that go on there.
Yeah, they call this also a hyperbolic geometry, right? And I don't know the bending of space-time, but this one happened in 6 minutes, right across from Stonehenge. And that's part of what you were saying, Steve, like the ley lines, the sacred sites, whether or not these are made with the geology of, the UK, which is chalk, which conduces the water frequencies, right? And how is the earth involved in this? Like, it is endlessly fascinating, and I really don't want to just go on and on, but I could.
Well, Nadi, I just thought, are you familiar with cymatics?
Oh my God! Right? Yeah.
Right. So I just want to, on occasion, me and Alan talk about the inner Earth.
Yeah.
The hollow Earth thing, and on occasion, I view crop circles as not coming from outside the Earth, but inside the Earth, and a sort of cymatic vortex technology producing these on the surface of the Earth.
Some of them might be that, but there's
exactly on some of them, which is very interesting, and it's something I picked up on Nadi's talk. I'm just going to say so. Nadi mentioned. Did you say that these crop circles, Nadi, are possibly from different races, each one of them, or do you believe they're all from the same race?
I think they could be from different ones. What do you think, Nadi?
I believe different.
I really thought they were different because they really do. Some of them have patterns, like, for example, the clamshell type, the sort of wormholes that I was showing you. Like, here's one example, right? And then there's another, like, really famous one. Where is it? I've just lost it. But the clamshell wormholes, there's a ton of variations of that. Or there's here's I had to draw that one as well, right? Oh, here it is. So
that's not, they're like wormholes. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's certain patterns that seem similar that, like, the Pleiadians might be really into that pattern, or there's.
Can you show my favorite one, which is the pi, the circle pi, where they figured out that was pi? You know that one I mean?
I don't.
Well, I just have to mention that last crop circle, we have to tip our hat to Duchamp. Please, because that's a Duchampian, very Duchampian.
Wait, keep going down. I'll show you which one the pi one is. If you go ahead, Steve. What did you say?
No, that's
I don't know which one
that's a Duchamp iconography.
I don't see it.
I'll just say.
Yeah, I don't know which one you mean, Alan.
I don't know. I thought I saw it there. Go up a little bit more.
Oh, here. Let's do it.
I thought I saw it. Sorry. All right. No. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, but check that out, right?
Oh,
right. And this one, DNA, right?
Yeah. Or.
Oh, okay. Hang on 1 second. Okay. Hang on 1 second, then we'll get there. To Steve, like what you were talking about, where it seemed like there were patterns. So I tended to call these ones the diamonds, right? Like, this looks like a certain type of grouping where these folks are really interested in very fine-tuned patterns, and I was lumping them together with, like, these would be the Andromedans, right? Fascinating with this. So which one Alan? This one?
No. These are, you're right, though. They are patterns from different seemingly star systems. They're all good.
Right.
Oh, that one, number 70, 84, 8, number 8, though, too. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. What, 8? Yes. That's a 12. They call that the Manhattan skyline because it just shoots up.
Okay. Right.
There's a star pattern, a 12-pointed star pattern in the middle of that.
Yeah. It's endlessly fascinating. Here's examples of what are called ghost formations, where the formations last over years, and the imprints of the geometries and the images stay with the field.
Well, it is a radiation or some kind of plasma beam,
right,
that flattens the crop.
right.
And when you go into the crop, you could see they're not broken. They're bent. They're like melted to bend over, to like lay down flat like that. Yeah.
The nodes, right? The nodes are blown.
The nodes. You gotta see this, Nadi. This will blow you away. Yes.
I'm ready, right? So here's what you're talking about, in a sense, where like the fields are like down in a certain way, and they bend at blown nodes, right? It's just so much.
I've interviewed Nancy Talbert about this too. You know Nancy Talbert?
Yeah, fun. Super fun. Okay, so can I finish with my one story?
Yes, please.
So one thing that happens, and Steve, just to think, I really do think the Arcturians are really kind of primarily invested in this. So, and they know that it's an activation. They know that whoever sees it, their consciousness can go wherever it wants to go, right? So lastly, like maybe somebody's watching this and they're hooked, and then they're going to go on, they got to find crop circles, and they don't know why they're obsessed, but they are. And the information, I've gone on binges, right? Like sometimes I'll just be fully immersed. I just want to be with them. At one point, that one that I called the sigil to my ship, I ended up drawing on clothing and putting glitter stars on there, and ended up doing metaphysical fairs for crop circles and beaconing. Like it was extensive. So there's a phenomenon, and you probably know about this, Alan. There's a phenomenon called astonishing synchronicities, right? Where we start to tap into the field that these things are sharing us. You know, they're activating within us. So I saw this one, you know, activated me into another binge, and I don't know about it. I don't know anything about it. I just was obsessed with it. And so, okay, fine, put it aside. And
I wanted to say to Steve, there's a harmonics among these circles that are drawn. But go ahead, Nadi, sorry.
Right. And there's a significance in how many circles there are. They're like 409. Oh, okay, on and on. So I'm in this binge, and for whatever reason, I start wondering about Queen Latifah, right? Like this wonderful rap artist, so talented from the 80s. And I'm like, I wonder what Queen Latifah's doing. And then I saw the thought, and I'm like, that is absurd. I don't know what that is. And it probably popped in 2 or 3 times in like a month or 2, right? And it was just interesting, and we learned those things. We set them aside. We go, oh yeah, that's curious, right? So then one night I just decide, like, okay, I'm checking out for a minute. I'm going to watch some mainstream, and I go on to Jimmy Fallon, and he's actually interviewing Queen Latifah, right? And so I'm looking at her, and I'm just enjoying the ride, and I zoom in to her earring, right? And there's that.
Wow. Is that an actual crop circle earring?
It's just jewelry. But maybe Queen Latifah's into crop circle jewelry. But like things like that, like life starts to get astonishing and fascinating when you start tapping into these technologies and these higher levels of our consciousness.
Okay.
There is so much more to us.
I love this. This is I mean, anyone watching want to go on a crop circle tour, contact me with my email next summer. But there's been less crop circles, which is the problem.
There's been less crop circles, but I will put in a plug in that I do these calls about crop circles regularly, and
yeah.
I mean, there's a PowerPoint here for a reason, right?
No, like, but how can people tune into your classes?
Yeah. So my website is Galactic Rose Geometry, right?
I'll put them in the chat here.
Yeah, and it's, I've got my whole list of events. I do crop circles. That one graduated to doing a binaural hemisync meditation while watching the crop circles. So it was total activation, right? And then, classes on light language, what we were talking about, and classes on genetic modification and how the humans are like starting to access this information for our evolution. Like, fascinating calls. I love to just get together with my people and geek out on our evolutionary process and how we can make it happen faster. So crop circles do that.
Nadi, I'm going to ask, do you feel when you're drawing these crop circles on your clothing and stuff, do you feel that somehow you've been embedded by this code, that this code has embedded itself in you?
That is such a great question.
And then I'll go from there. I'll say, and then do you feel like you have the need to transmit that code by creating it, replicating it? And, so then it kind of, to use a word, infectious or viral, would these crop circles be viral in the sense that they want to be replicated and,
that's
transmitted. And I just gonna, before I stop, I'm just gonna.
You're freezing up, Steve.
The definition of relating to.
Wait, start over. You broke up. Start over. Steve.
Relating to hiding, such as that of ancient Egypt.
Wait. Start, Steve. We lost some of that. Start over.
Represent of relating to or being.
We lost some that.
Well, we'll wait. Usually it passes. We'll come back. I mean, it'll pass.
Meaning or sound.
Start from the beginning. We got cut out there, Steve.
Okay.
Darn. All right. Well,
let me see if I can just get to or being a system of pictorial symbols.
Oh, it's excruciating, isn't it? Damn it.
What are you looking for, Nadi?
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's excruciating to want to hear Steve. He's saying such good stuff. And Steve, are you back now? Maybe can you start from the beginning?
Am I breaking up? I mean,
maybe shut off your camera for a second, just so we can hear what you're reading.
But you look like you're back. Okay. Sometimes we get a couple glitches. Okay.
All right. Okay, let's hear what Steve has to say.
The definition of hieroglyphs, because I think it's kind of important to relate crop circles to the idea of a hieroglyph, of relating to or being a system of writing, such as that of ancient Egypt, in which
yeah, for sure.
Pictorial symbols are used to represent or sounds or a combination of meaning and sound.
Well, sigils is a word you use a lot too, Steve.
Right. And that gets us, well, Alan, and that gets into the word that you've been trying to go to, these symbols. Right. Right. And that's something, Nadi, that we discuss a lot in terms of language. What is a symbol mean? And
as opposed to a sign.
As opposed to a sign. And
look at my presentation at Contact in the Desert, Nadi. I go into that.
Do you?
Okay.
Yes. I said the difference between symbol and sign is the difference between concrete and abstract thinking. It's the difference between apprehension versus comprehension. When you comprehend something, you collapse the wave function into a form. And when you're apprehending something, you're thinking abstractly.
Which can go back to the report that we started with. The report is comprehensive.
Yes.
That comprehensive. So,
it was,
Alan, is that a lecture of yours? Is that online?
Well, I'll send it to you, but it's on Contact in the Desert. It was special I did for Contact. I'll send it to you.
See that, yeah.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
I'm so glad you brought it back, Steve, because it's like here we've spent this hour with this non-linear, activating, energetic, right brain sensory activation, right? Like notice how you feel. right now versus when we were talking about the report. It's like,
right. Thank you. You're right, Nadi. Thank you for that.
We also can just bring in the idea of qualitative as opposed to quantitative. The report is quantitative, and our experiences as experiences of a higher consciousness is qualitative. It's a change in quality of being, to use a kind of Gurdjieffian term.
Well, you know, Robert Lawler, when I studied with him, he said we've lost the quality of numbers and they've only taken on quantity, but numbers have qualities.
Right. Like I say, well, that's why it was there was a codification that went on after the Enlightenment, and numbers began to be treated like little soldiers that had to line up, and 1 + 1 = 2, and they could not equal anything else. And that's not really true.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, but that's a whole other talk about number theory and emergence of value and
meaning, number, the qualities of different numbers. It's not just a count, it's a quality that gets into other levels of physics as well.
Right, which is something that I go back to, is that I hate the terms, again, 1, 2, and third dimension, fourth dimension, because all these dimensions are interwoven, and it's kind of what thread we pick out of this interwoven tapestry, or how many threads we grasp, going back to the idea of innocence and experience. How many threads can we grasp in the tapestry as awareness, in a way, and we have to remember, is there value in that experience of grasping more threads, or is perhaps the value in just grasping one thread and living with it? We try not to make that distinction or that judgment, right?
Right. But Nadi, this is great. Steve, this has been great. We'll hopefully do this. Yeah, Steve.
Can we view the crop circle as a tube, a hypertube, that we're viewing down the cross section of a tube, as opposed to, and remember, if it's we get into kind of emergent properties, the dot becomes a line, the line becomes a tube, the tube becomes.
But that's very Euclidean. There must be non-Euclidean ways.
Right, and good point, Alan. That but as the awareness emerges, that's a good way, I think, for people to begin, is to understand emergent property of numbers and dimensions, the line, the point, the circle. Sacred geometry is very non-language. You're dealing with, again, a hieroglyph. It has meaning and sound, and so
an impact and initiation.
Right, as opposed to this hardwired language text.
Well, that's what I'm saying about comprehension versus apprehension.
Right.
And thinking abstractly, which is how the ETs think. What's that, Nadi?
Well, that's the difference between like the higher frequencies and then dumbing down to language and the frequency of words. It's
right.
If you like, our language is ridiculous. The communication of the universe and other races is telepathy, purely energetic. Like such nuanced information in like thought block moment of transmission. And like the English language is just so primitive, it's painful, but we're talking, comprehend.
You mean human language, because dolphins communicate 4 sounds at a time.
Yeah.
Dolphins holographic.
Holographically, man. Exactly. Human language. So we're talking.
Actually, I just have to say, I believe that we communicate on multiple levels.
Well, yeah, facially, voice, quality of voice. But the sounds themselves are very one-dimensional.
Well, no, I'm not sure about that, Alan. I'm not sure about that. I'll just
I think words, let's say words, not sounds, but words.
Like words, and they can be encoded like channeled messages, but in general, you get the gist of what, right? Like there's higher communication that's hieroglyphic, symbolic, that's accessing the greater intelligence of us. And then there's government reports. Right?
Good. That's the rhizomatic analogy there, Steve.
Right. Okay. What's the rhizomatic analogy, Alan?
Rhizomes. Talk about their rhizome theory.
Rhizomes. I thought you said rhizomatic.
No, rhizomes as opposed to duality. Talk.
That there are no higher and lower.
Right.
There is no higher and lower. It's all experience. And I like to think that we just need to learn to improvise through these multiple dimensions and accept them as they come to us, improvise through them, not grasp that tunnel maybe, and let go of it and move on to the next. And, do we have a trajectory? Is there a trajectory? Is that what life is about? Or is it just this circuitous route?
Or is it in the moment?
Maybe there's no that we take through our lives,
Maybe there's no route at all, or route. It's just moment to moment.
Right.
Simultaneously here and other aspects of ourselves or on other solar systems and planetary systems. Like there's so much we don't know.
And so we'll just really quickly go into hexagrams, Nadi, if you don't mind, and if you have any thoughts on hexagrams.
Yeah, there's a lot of hexagrams in crop circles.
It's just it's one of the fundamental structures, right? I mean, if you think about a honeycomb, it packs information in the most efficient, effective way. It's like one of the most perfect geometries, and it's in the flower, right? We've got this beautiful hexagonal structure, the 6 sides of the flower of life, and it's just it's so primary. I don't know that I have anything esoteric, Steve.
I think it's also why carbon is such a popular atom, because it can do so many different things within its hexagonal structure.
It's packing. It's triangles, squares, and hexagrams pack solidity. If anybody's interested in tiling, is very so. Roger Penrose has some interesting higher dimensional physics about tiling. And Bucky Fuller and his packing theories.
I think that triangle shape you first showed us is called the Penrose triangle, I think. Yeah. Anyway, I have to go because I have people to meet.
Places to go.
A busy guy.
I don't have anywhere to go, but I got people to meet.
Yeah. Really quick. Okay, so I just want to share this. I don't know, Alan, if you're
share it. No, go ahead. I have time. If you had something really good to share and important.
Well, I mean, it's just complimentary about hexagons. But here's NASA.
Show us. Yeah.
That's
good.
Here's NASA. Where did it go? Darn it. Using technology of hexagonal structure, right? So, super advanced, super user friendly. And, the other thing I do is I teach classes.
What were you showing us there, Nadi? Show that again.
Did you? Oh, okay.
Show what you just showed us before and describe it.
Right. So this is NASA's Space Telescope, the Flower of Life, right? This is they're utilizing quote unquote new technology. They're finally figuring out that we can maximize space and information with the hexagonal structure that's been known throughout the universe, right? So this is these PowerPoints are examples of the classes I teach to learn to draw sacred geometry, and you saw the crop circles because we begin to align. We are so fragmented, and when you work with the geometry, the harmonics are so perfect and intelligent that we align our systems and we begin to open to our highest intelligence. So do check it out. I love calls on talking about this stuff. Obviously, I could geek out for a long time.
No, I know. Check out Nadi's classes, Galactic Rose Geometry.
And I have loved geeking out with you guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
It was great talking to you. Thank you.
It was great talking to you both. We'll do it again next Wednesday, the ET Roundtable. Stay tuned. Alan Steifeld. Buy my book, make contact. And Nadi, great to see you again. We'll talk soon. Thanks, Steve, for all your, you bring in so many different elements that just add to the conversation. I'm always resistant, but I'm always thankful.
Right. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks. Okay. See you. Bye. Talk to you.